We are checking the homework for section 5.2, and number 1 and 3, they wanted you to do circle mappings to determine whether the relation was a function. And so we need to label them as domain and range. The domain or independent variable being your x coordinate. And there's only one, it's 3. And then the range, which is your dependent variable or your y coordinate, looks like that. And all of these go to the same one. Anytime you have fewer terms in the domain than you have in the range, it is not a function because you're going to have a repeated x value. And I can look at this list right here and tell that I have a repeated x value, and so it will not follow the definition of a function. And then in this one, we have our domain again, the independent variable or x value, and it's got 0.04, 0.2, 1, and 5 in it. And then the range, the y value or dependent variable is 0.2, 1, 5, and 25. And 0.04 maps to 0.2. 0.2 maps to 1, 1 maps to 5, and 5 to 25. And so this one is, because each x value goes to exactly one y value. One where let's say you had 1, 2, and 3 for your domain. And your range was only the number 4. And all of those mapped to 4. This is a function. What you can't have is this situation where you have fewer domain than you have range. You can have fewer range than you have domain, but you can't have fewer of that domain or independent variable. 5 and 7, they ask you to use the vertical line test. So in order to do that, we have to graph the points. So we have 2, 5, 3, -5, 4, 5, and 5, -5. None of these points are one right above the other, so they all pass the vertical line test. So yes, this one is a function, and I'm going to use that same graph to do number 7 on. 3, -1 would be right there. -2, 3 would be here. -1, -5 is here. And then 3, 2 is here. And because these 2 points are directly one above the other, this is not a function. It fails the vertical line test. In 9 through 15, they want us to make a table for each function and use 1, 2, 3, and 4 as the domain. So that's our x values, our independent variable. So we're going to put in where I see x, a 1. So this would be 1 plus 7, and that would give me 8. 2 plus 7 would give me 9. 3 plus 7 would give me 10. 4 plus 7 would give me 11. And they did use function notation here. This could be, if it wasn't written in function notation, they could have written it like this, but they chose to use function notation. But that f of x is just replacing where we could have written y. And so this is the domain. Or not, sorry, the range. They didn't ask you that, but they do ask you that on 17 and 19. But we put in the domain of 1, 2, 3, and 4 and got out the range of 8, 9, 10, and 11. In number 11, the function is x squared, so it's going to be 1 squared, which is 1, 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, which is 9, 4 squared, which is 16. Here it's 15 minus x, so 15 minus 1 would be 14. 15 minus 2 would be 13. 15 minus 3 would be 12. And 15 minus 4 would be 11. And then in number 15, it's 1/4 times x. So 1/4 x, replacing the x with 1 would be 1/4. 1/4 times 2 would be 2/4, which is 1/2. 1/4 times 3 is 3/4, and 1/4 times 4 would be 1, because the 4's would cancel. And then in 17 and 19, they ask you if this is the domain to find the range. So you're essentially doing the same thing. You're plugging into the x value. So we have 0.5 and 11. I'm going to show it to you in a table form here. So 5 times 0.5 minus 2. 5 times 0.5 is 2.5, minus 2 would be a half. And then 5 times 11 minus 2. 5 times 11 is 55, minus 2 would be 53. So my range, which is what they are looking for, is the set 0.5 and 53. It's the answers you get out when you plug in those numbers. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. If I put in -5, I would have 5 times -5 minus 2. -25 minus 2 is -27. Put in -1. 5 times -1 is -5. Minus another 2 is -7. Why? -5, -2. They're both negative. Add them and keep the sign. Put in 0. We get 5 times 0 is 0. Minus 2 is -2. Put in 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Minus 2 is 8. And then finally put in 10. 5 times 10 is 50. Minus 2 is 48. And so your solution is -27, -7, 2, -2, 8, and 48. They want the range, which is the set of answers. When we plugged in our independent variable, the dependent variable that we got out when we did that. 21 and 23, they want you to determine if the relation is a function, and if it is a function, state the domain and range. So look in your x values and see if you have any repeats. And you do here. So you have a repeat. No, this is not a function, because if you graphed this, what you would have would be, you would have a point at 1 -3 and 1 +3. So you would have one point above the other. So just checking for that repeated x. On this one, you're okay. So your domain, which they ask you to give, is -4, -1, 0, and 3. And then your range is simply -4. Again, you can repeat the y value. You can't repeat the x value. And then 32 through 35, you just had to tell if it was if it passed the vertical line test. So yes, this one does. None of those vertical lines touched in more than one place. So yes, this one is. But if you looked at this one, a vertical line would touch the graph in more than one place. So no, this one, the vertical line touches in more than one place. This one does not, so it is a function.